Welcome everyone to another episode of the world's greatest news and reviews.
Giving you opinions about nerd stuff is our superpower.
I'm Captain Mao.
And I'm Uhtred of Bebenbeg.
He's actually Weapon 2. First-time viewers, do not be fooled. But we are going to be
Uhtred of Bebenbeg.
We are going to be talking about the Uhtred of Bebenbuzz, because today we're bringing you our official review for The Last Kingdom. So, The Last Kingdom is a Netflix series. First two seasons actually were originally a BBC series. Netflix picked it up for seasons 3 and 4. So, we're going to be talking about all 4 seasons and the series as a whole. This first part of the review, we'll keep spoiler free, just give you our overall thoughts about the show itself, kind of a breakdown of what it's about. Once we give you a spoiler warning, we'll start talking about parts from all 4 seasons that we really, really liked and storylines and all that kind of stuff. But for those of you who don't know, Weapon 2, what is The Last Kingdom's about?
The Last Kingdom is about a child of England who was taken by the Vikings when they came and invaded, and taken back to Norway or wherever, to Viking land, and where the Danes hang out. And so he was raised as a Dane, aka Viking, and came back, and so he's had kind of a weird loyalty to both the Danes and the English. And it's just a long story with a whole lot of fighting and occupation and battling and all of that. It's really super cool.
Yeah, so it takes place in the late 8th century when the Viking invasion was happening over what would become modern-day England. And so this is back when England was broken up to a bunch of different countries, right? Or a bunch of different lands. There was different kings ruling every different era.
Northumbria, Mercia.
Wessex.
Yeah, all that stuff.
All that kind of stuff. And so as the Vikings were coming from modern-day Scandinavia, from different parts, from Norway, from Denmark, all that kind of stuff, Uhtred, the main character, his father is the lord, or like a lord of Northumbria, one of the big lords of Northumbria, like used to be the king there. And yeah, his father.
Bebenbeg.
Yeah. Past Northumbria, that's right. Bebimba. And so yeah, his father's a dick. They get invaded by the Vikings. They take him as a hostage, and he's raised as Vikings. But the cool thing that happens is he adopts the way of life of the Vikings, and he loves, like, that's his actual family. Like, to him, that's his family, that's his blood, and he is a Viking. As the show progresses, he then finds himself kind of torn between wanting to reclaim his land, Bebimba, that is rightfully his, and try to like be essentially an elderman of, well, it's not England. What the hell? What do they call it?
Northumbria.
But he doesn't fit in with them because he's Viking as shit, right? And there's some really, really funny interactions that happen. But with the Vikings, they don't trust his ass either most of the time because they think at his core he wants to go serve the king of, Wessex.
And he does. He does fight with them for large periods of time.
And he really is torn, though. That's part of what makes the show so cool. So, first of all, there's a lot of comparisons online between this show and Vikings because obviously they both set around the same time period. They both portray Viking characters and all that stuff. I have seen 3 seasons of Vikings, maybe 4, and I didn't stop watching because of a different quality. I just got a lot of other stuff to watch. I've watched all 4 seasons of this. Personal opinion, this show is way better than Vikings. What do you think?
I like it better.
But you do like Vikings also.
I do like Vikings a lot.
Right.
I like this better.
So if you like Vikings, if that kind of show, if that kind of genre, or if this time period is kind of your thing, check this show out. It's really, really good. And I think that this show does very well as characters. Uhtred is really, really cool. And like I said, part of what makes him an interesting character is he is torn, very much so, between how he was raised and versus trying to do what he thinks he was born to do. And there's a lot of stuff. Part of what makes the show great, though, is the supporting characters. All of Uhtred's men throughout the various seasons are freaking hilarious.
Right.
The Irish dude is probably my favorite character in the entire show.
Right.
Throughout the series, he has lots of cool men that fight for him that are really cool. Lots of the characters themselves are really good. Like Alfred, the king of Wessex, is freaking fantastic throughout the show. His wife, who you hate for the majority of the show, is great because you hate her. You know what I mean? You hate every move that she makes, but that's because the actress is portraying her super well. And if you know your history at all, a lot of these historical figures are real historical figures. And again, the show's riding the line of like embellishing shit that's happened, like compressing timelines and that kind of stuff. But this is real stuff that actually did kind of happen. Like Uhtred was a real person.
Uhtred the Bold.
Uhtred the Bold.
That's who he was. He died in, I think, 1016.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and Alfred the Great is actually was Alfred, the king that they have portrayed here.
You mean like are we talking about Ethelred? Ethelred?
No, he was a real person also, but Alfred the Great was the actual king.
Ethelred was the unready.
Oh, is that who that was?
That's who he was called.
Here's my problem with this show. One criticism. A lot of the names are very similar. So you have Ethelred, Ethelsted, Mofo. Like you have all these Ethels, and I'm just like, wait, is that the guy I don't like or the chick I think is hot? Like who is this?
Right. Yes. Some of them. Yes. Some of them do sound exactly the same. Yeah.
And they're like, Ethelred is dead. I was like, she was just the dude. Okay.
See, and now I'm mixed up on what the real king's name is. I'm not even sure that I said the name right.
But as a whole, so the acting is great. The storytelling is great. I will say, if you're going to give this a run, the first episode is really, really good. After that, episodes 2, 3, and 4 kind of really dip. They kind of lean heavy into politics and a lot of setup. For me personally, that's when I almost stopped watching. Get through that, and then the show just takes off from there. Season 2 is great. The end of season 1 is great. Season 3 is great. Literally, it hasn't dipped in quality for me. So I say the acting is fantastic. The characters are fantastic. The fighting is really, 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 really good. Really brutal. Doesn't really romanticize it at all, which is kind of crazy. The weapons and stuff like that are pretty historically accurate if you give a shit about that at all. I say as a whole, this is probably my new favorite show. Like if Game of Thrones left a hole in your heart for a type of show in this genre, in this vein, there's no fantasy elements. It's based in the real world. But this is
who
really,
suggested
really
this? Who suggested this? To you?
Weapon 2 suggested.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
If you go back and watch our top 10 things to stream while in the quarantines, which you should, this was one of his shows he suggested. And after that, you tried to sell it to me pretty hard because you could tell this would be up my alley. And yeah, I binged the hell out of it. I'm trying to get everybody I know to watch this show. So I think it is probably my new favorite show.
Nice.
Anything you want to add overall?
No, I think that's good. I think we ought to start spoiling some stuff.
Also, like best opening this side of like Daredevil, like the opening sequence.
Yeah. When this first showed up on Netflix, which was at least 2 years ago, I think, is when I watched it. So the first couple of episodes or so, it's been a long time since I watched them.
But okay, so The Last Kingdom gives a big recommendation from myself and Weapon 2. Check it out.
Do it.
Spoiler alerts. We're going to go into some shit now.
Yeah.
Weapon 2, what do you want to talk about?
So, the character development in this is really good. Like the, what's her name? The girl Viking who was with Ragnar and then it was with Knut.
Brita.
Yeah, she's a really good character.
That is a chick I would never want to piss off in my life. She's a good
character. I mean, the thing about this show is, in addition to it's just a cool premise of Vikings and invasions and Britons and fighting and all that kind of stuff, is the characters are really, really, really good. They're all really interesting. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of them they make you want to despise them, and like when the God, I wish I could remember the king's name. Was it Alfred? Was he the younger one? He was a younger one. Who was the oldest father?
The very first one?
Yeah. Was that Alfred?
Alfred is the king throughout most of season 1, 2, and 3. He's the one who dies at the very end. His son is king now.
Right.
So Alfred is that guy.
So his wife or whoever who later on,
whatever.
Yeah, she becomes pretty bad character you want to hate.
But here's the only thing with that character is there are moments where you want to strangle her,
right? Because
she is irritating the shit out of you. Right. But then she has like these very human moments when you understand her side of like what she's thinking.
Well, that's the best. Yeah. That's the best villains. The best villains are all the way evil.
Dude, I see what you're saying. I still disagree with you, but fuck.
She thinks she's doing the thing that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's, and back then it was all about controlling the throne and heirs to the throne and who can maneuver to get control of the throne. And there's a whole lot of that stuff going on throughout this.
One thing that I really love too is they showed when Alfred was dying, the amount of sheer fear and chaos that ensues when a king dies.
Right.
Because especially in this era where like it's not just a given that the son is going to become king, where the aldermen are actually kind of have a vote. And you see the powerful. This is the same shit that happened in ancient Rome when the fucking Caesar was dying. You know what I mean? Like it was such a turbulent time, and like even. And it's frustrating because as Alfred's dying, the Danes, the Vikings, they're coming.
Right.
But the more dangerous thing is the shit they're doing in Wessex, like all power playing each other to try to set up who's going to take the throne. You're just like, motherfuckers, y'all need to get your shit together because the Vikings are coming. Like, and the Vikings know that this is happening. They're waiting for Alfred to die to capitalize on the chaos.
Well, and you're right. And when this is all going on, everybody is in jeopardy because until a new king is crowned and declared the king, it is absolute chaos. Everybody's after everybody. Anybody can go after anybody. Everybody's afraid that whoever the new king is going to be is going to kill them or turn on them. I mean, even when what's his face, I can't even remember the connection to everybody, but the king who dies in the fourth, who gets killed because the one guy thought that he was going to reveal that he was the one who gave him the bad information for the battle, and he wound up killing him. He wound up like twisting that thing on his head so tight it killed him.
Yeah. That was
crazy.
Mercia. He was the king of Mercia.
Yeah.
He was married to Alfred's daughter. Yeah.
So
you hate that prick crazy. Too. That guy played a smug, rich asshole.
Oh yeah.
So, because you just want to punch, even when he's not doing dastardly things, just that smirk on his face.
The king?
You just want, the king of Mercia. You just want to punch him in the fucking face.
Right.
And like how he abused the daughter on the wedding night, you know what I mean? And it's like, well, this is some Ramsay Bolton shit. So, so everybody in the show, they played their part well.
And with all of that, what we just said, the thing about Uhtred is the selflessness of him as a character. He's not looking for power. What he wants is what he feels like was taken from him. He wants to become the lord or the earl of Bebbanburg, where his uncle's taken over, and that's all he wants. He really wants what he felt like was his birthright, and he doesn't want anything more. Right. When more power is offered to him, he doesn't want it. But he has this selflessness and this loyalty to people where his word's his bond, and so when he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it.
Which kind of like screws him though, because so he builds up this reputation as being the Dane Slayer and like the savior of Wessex, because he is involved in every pivotal battle. Right? Like Alfred's reign would not have been as successful as king if it wasn't for Uhtred being there. You know what I mean? And it really screws him because it makes Alfred paranoid because he has the love of the people. He has the support of the warriors. And like if Uhtred, when he was kind of at the height of his power, like when he didn't have Bebbanburg or anything, but he had a lot of men and money at the time when he had his estate and all that. If he wanted to make a power play, he probably could have. Had no desire to do that though, but everybody's in Alfred's ear. This is where Alfred was being very dismissive of him, treating him almost like a traitor all the time, and with his wife in his fucking ear, and you're hating it. And so what it led to is like a confrontation happening between them and Uhtred becoming an outlaw, and this whole thing happened. But all this leads to my favorite scene of the entire series is when a dying Alfred has Uhtred in his chamber and they're talking. And this is where he's talking about, he's written out his legacy on the pages, and he's like, this is what history is going to remember and all that. And he's just like, Uhtred's like, well, I'm not in any of this. And he's just like, but I get it. Like, any lord is the hero of his own story. Right. And I loved this scene because there's so much tension because he's an outlaw, because the wife saw him there and like she wants to murder him. But you don't know if like Alfred's going to do presumably the right thing. And I loved when Alfred was just like, you know, you're not in any of these pages, but you are the reason I'm going to die a king. Yeah. It will not be written that King Alfred stood on the shoulders of Uhtred of Bebbanburg, but I know it to be true. And the look on Uhtred's face is like he was going to cry because he's like, that's all I wanted. Right. I didn't even need you to say thank you. Just acknowledge what the fuck I've been doing for decades. You know what I mean? And like, that was such a great scene to me. I mean, and even later on when he gets offered the control and power of Mercia, he doesn't want it. The minute he gets it, he turns it over to Ethelstead.
Yeah.
Alfred's daughter. Yes.
So he basically just says, okay, thank you, and I quit. I want to give it to her because he knows
she
that
deserves it.
And yes, her heart. That's where her people. She's belongs to that. And that's just more of him. He makes a lot of, where you look at it, huge strategic mistakes, and does things where you look at it and go, geez, you would have been way better doing this other thing. But he does it because he has this conscience and this inside thing of doing what's right. And so he always wants to do what's right. He always wants to do and to a fault, he seems to do what's best for other people rather than himself. So that makes him a good character.
It makes him a really good character. So my only, it's not a criticism, but my only worry is time is advancing very quickly on this show. Not even in between seasons, but even in the middle of season 2, there's a several year time jump. And at the end of season 1, Alfred's children were children. Like the kid was a baby, the son, and the daughter was like a toddler, essentially. And now they're essentially adults or late teens, early 20s type thing. And it's getting to the point where if they keep jumping time, it's going to have to be noticeable that Uhtred should look a lot older and he doesn't. So I'm just worried that there's going to be a Fox X-Men thing going on where Magneto's walking around supposed to be 60 years old and he looks like a 35-year-old. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I'm assuming they have some kind of plan for that. I don't know if this next season is going to have a time jump, but that's starting. I actually looked up what would be the timeline of events that have happened, and at least 20 years have passed and Uhtred looks exactly the same.
Yeah, well, we're already out of history, so it doesn't matter. They can do whatever they want.
Are we already past it for the most part?
He only ruled for 10 years. Yeah.
Who, Alfred?
Well, no. Uhtred the Bold was the Earl of Northumbria. So here's where the reality is. He never got kidnapped by Danes and taken somewhere. He was half Dane. Okay, so he was a ruling. Now, as opposed to where we see in season 4 where he kills Canute. That's not how it happened in history. Canute became the ruler, I think the king of England or something like that, or king of Northumbria or something, became the king of something. So then he had to swear allegiance to Canute. So Canute said, hey, come to where I am and bend the knee or whatever people like to say and swear allegiance. And he said, okay, I'll do it. And when he showed up, it was an ambush. Oh, he was
Game of Thrones on him.
Yes, and this guy named, what was his name? His name was what was his name? Thorobrand the Hold was waiting with all his men, and because they had to turn in all their weapons to come in to see the king, right? They turned in all their weapons, and this guy named Thorobrand or whatever, the Hold, and all his men came in and killed them all.
That sucks.
Killed Uhtred the Bold and all his men.
So, I mean, any kind of show like this is going to be historically, influenced and all that, but at a certain point, like you said, they just do their own thing. So we're at the point of fantasy now, basically.
Yeah, and we're just making up whatever story is the thing.
I'm on board with that. Right. And you know what? The one thing I do like is that they haven't specifically said this is this year and this is taking place in this, you know what I mean? They're just kind of like, kind of this time.
You know what I like the most about this? Where they show the name, I don't know if it's the Dane name or an older name.
Right, and then they
put it into the newer, change the name. So I like that.
Yeah, so I know where we are. Yeah. So any complaint I have about this is a nitpick. Even like I was saying, the age thing, I don't really care. Who gives a shit? As long as the show's good and entertaining. Again, everything I said in the spoiler-free part stands. The acting's great. The writing's great. The characters are great. The fighting, I feel like for a fighty show, we haven't talked about fighting very much. There's some really good battles. Right. And every season there's multiple battles, but there's essentially the big one that they're building to. And they've done a good job of changing location and time of day and what's happening. One there is in a forest, one's in a wide open field, and they change it up enough so it doesn't feel like the same shit over and over and over again. Plus the stakes and the storyline that's going on per each battle is, it's all about Wessex versus the Danes, but it's all kind of different. There's always inner little battles going on. So it hasn't got monotonous to me, not yet.
And I also like that they aren't all these huge epic war scenes like you see in a lot of other movies, because in a lot of the stuff they weren't always having thousands and thousands of people. There was sometimes where we just had a few hundred or a few dozen, and you go out there, meet with some weapons and try to see who can win.
And also, and it's So, like, in Game of Thrones did this a lot because that's super fantasy, right? But it's like, oh, like armies of 10,000 and 20,000 and all this. And everybody's a knight and everybody has armor and everybody has horses. Not this. Like, they do a good job of showing, like you said, sometimes it's a couple hundred people because that's all you can get together. And there's like a dozen or two, like, actual knights, like, on horseback. The rest are just normal people. Some of them are soldiers. Some are normal people with pitchforks and shit.
Farmer.
Which is what actually happened. Like, you would call all the people you had. Some were professional warriors. Most of them were not, and you would just fucking fight. So, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's little bits more of realism in this that I like. Again, there's fantasy shit all throughout it too, but that kind of shit I really appreciate, especially after, you know, Game of Thrones, which is a little crazier for that kind of stuff. But yeah, I really, really love this. Is, like I said, this is probably my favorite show right now. So anything else you want to throw out there?
No, it's just a good movie. If you haven't watched it, I don't know what you're waiting for. Watch this.
Yes, definitely.
Do it.
Definitely check it out if this is your type. Even if it's not your type of thing, this is one of those shows I think the writing might swerve you to kind of get into it a little bit. So check it out. But yeah, Last Kingdom on Netflix, 4 seasons out right now. Check it out. And as always, thank you for joining us on this episode of the world's greatest news and reviews. If you've enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications.
Peace.